By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what the Federal Reserve's rate hike just a couple days ago means for you if you're buying or selling a home this spring or summer in Kansas City. We will also discuss where exactly people are relocating to Kansas City from, and then we'll end by analyzing the differences between the Kansas City, Missouri real estate market and the housing market in Overland Park. If you're new to the channel, then welcome. My name's Nick Massa. I help people buy and sell homes across the Kansas City metro. And one of the things that I love to do is one, all of this research because it makes me better. I learn from it. But two, I can give it to you so you're the first to know about it, and then you can use it to your absolute advantage. So subscribe so you don't miss any good updates like this. Hit the like button if you enjoy this video. If you're thinking of buying or selling, I would love to help. I'll tell you exactly how I can help at the end of the video. Let's get going. Part number one is all about mortgages. I'm not going to get super into the weeds here. I'm just going to give you what you need to know. Basically, inflation, it's sky high. It was previously about 8%. Now we're sitting at about 6% because the Federal Reserve has been increasing the federal funds rate, which controls the interest rate, how expensive it is to borrow money for short-term loan products, okay? So this would not be a mortgage. Mortgages are indirectly tied to this because they are long-term rather than short-term. So the Federal Reserve was really, really aggressive. Here's a chart that shows their history. You see all of those 75s. Those were historically big increases in the federal funds rate. Month after month after month, we've softened from 8% inflation to 6%. So now the Federal Reserve thinks, okay, we're turning a corner here and we're getting things back under control. We're still going to continue increasing short-term interest rates, but we're going to be a little less aggressive than we were last year. So the mortgage industry, here's an article that shows you from Market Watch, they're expecting this to have a positive impact on mortgage rates. Previously, many experts expected that we would be lingering around the 6.5 to 6% mark when it comes to taking out a mortgage, which, keep in mind, yes, is up from like the 3.5% it would be just a year ago, but historically that's still a really good mortgage rate, okay? So instead of that 6 to 6.5%, they're expecting, based on the softening of inflation, that we would come down to about 5% by the end of this year, by the final quarter of 2023, which is big news and means that for you, if you're buying your home, it's going to be cheaper each month because nobody really cares about the purchase price, right? It's all about the monthly payment that you can afford, which is significantly impacted by mortgage rates. So that's going to be softening. It's going to be less expensive. And then if you're selling your home, this means that you're going to have more demand from buyers who are going to have bigger purchasing power. So you might get a higher price, assuming everything continues to soften, inflation continues to reduce, and lenders don't jack up mortgage rates in response to any surprises in the economy. Long story short, here's exactly what it means right now based on the cost of the home that you're looking at. If you're buying a home worth about $400,000, you could expect to pay about $2,400 a month at 6% interest. If we climb up to the $600,000 purchase price, you're looking at a monthly payment of $3,600. And then finally, if we're up all the way to the $800,000 mark, you're looking at about $4,800 a month. Part number two is relocation. According to Redfin, about 25% of households were considering moving out, relocating away from the metro area they currently live in. I'm going to show you a graph, right? Because you're seeing all the headlines, right? Housing prices collapsing across the country. That's not true. I've made a video here in which we've looked at reports from Zillow, Redfin, all the big players, and they're saying that instead of going to the coastal cities like everybody did over COVID when home prices were starting to climb up, now they're starting to descend. People are going to the Midwest because of its affordability and stability. Okay, so many different places have said this. Here's a graph that shows exactly what's happening with home prices across the country. You'll notice the harsh red colors that you see. These are markets that have come down significantly from the peak prices, okay? So you'll notice a lot of this is on the West Coast. You'll also notice some in Florida. You've got a couple in Texas. You've got your Dallas and your Houston or Austin. And then you've got some Washington, D.C., Chicago, but most of it is on the West Coast, okay? I'm going to show you take like a mental picture of this. All of these housing markets that are now coming down in price. Keep in mind, Kansas City is not one of them. We've shifted 0% according to this data since our record highs in this housing market. Take a mental picture. Here's a graph from Redfin that shows exactly where people are relocating to Kansas City from. You'll notice it's from those housing markets. A lot in California, see a little bit in Texas. You've got Colorado, Minnesota, we've got Chicago, Washington, D.C. This data is actually from 1 year ago. I just found it pretty interesting how similar these graphs work. Part number three, we're going to discuss the differences between the housing market in Kansas City, Missouri, and Overland Park. I think we could look at these two different markets. Well, first of all, they're the biggest city in those counties. So if Kansas City, Missouri represents represents Jackson County and Overland Park represents Johnson County, what is actually happening in those markets. Because not only is the housing market shift that appears to be national based on all the headlines, not only is it regional, but it's hyper local as well. So what I've done is I've gone into the MLS, and for every transaction that's closed up until this point in January, we're looking at the percent of asking price received. So basically, did it sell for over or under asking price? In Kansas City, Missouri, which had far more inventory than Overland Park did, we had 403 homes that sold at 97% of asking price. Okay, well, that's pretty significant. Let's say it was a $500,000 home. They lost about $15,000. So it sold for $15,000 less. And obviously the buyer determines that a true value of a home, because a home is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And that these sellers were a little bit off the mark, possibly because they were used to being able to list for, crazy numbers and getting that, but 3%, not too bad. If we look at Overland Park, again, inventory was far less at 122 homes. Percent of asking price received was 101.2. Think about that. So most homes in Overland Park going above asking price. Figured I would share those numbers because I find them interesting, and most likely it comes down to less inventory in Overland Park means more demand and people have to really fight for those homes. But it could also be, we know that home prices in Overland Park are a little bit higher than in Kansas City, Missouri, so the demographic purchasing there could be able to afford to pay a little bit more for the house they would really, really want. But I can tell you for a fact that in either of those markets, KCMO or Overland Park, there are homes there that have bidding wars, that are selling really quickly and selling over asking price. So the average can be a little deceptive because outliers can drag it down, but hopefully that gives you some insight as to what you're heading for if you're selling or buying a home this spring or summer as we get into that peak home buying season. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe so you don't miss any future updates. I want to make sure you're the first to see them. And of course, if you're buying, selling, maybe even relocating to Kansas City, I would love to help you. All of my contact information is in the description. If you like what I said, let's see if we'd be a good fit. Send me an email, text, or give me a phone call. We can talk about exactly what that would look like for you. I'll see you on the next video.